Hey, this is Jay.
And this is Chelsea.
Welcome to the Shifting Perceptions podcast.
We are bringing you inspiration to live a more creative lifestyle because our favorite people are the ones that choose the path less traveled. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 39th episode of the Shifting Perceptions podcast. This is Chelsea. We had the honor of sitting down with the legendary Vince Troniec a couple weeks ago, on his 69th birthday, no less. This interview was special to us, as Vince is one of our closest family friends and a total local legend on the Jersey Shore. We have found every late night or oceanside chat with Vince and his amazing wife Elaine to be one of the best talks we've ever had, and we felt it was about time we share him with the world. Vince started competing in surf competitions at an early age, and by age 17, he was invited to participate in the World Trials in Puerto Rico. Through this interview, he paints a vivid picture for us at a time when surfing culture was in its infancy and the likes of Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, and Led Zeppelin were making musical history. And he has the concert's ticket stubs to prove it. From watching Asbury Park grow into the hipster enclave it is today to being one of the first people to stock Quicksilver in his famous Long Branch surf shop, Vince has a colorful and storied past, but is also an extraordinarily down-to-earth and impressively humble human. So sit back, get comfortable, and prepare to visualize the history of surfing in all of its glory, told through the eyes of the incredibly passionate and insanely talented surf legend, Vince Troniec.
Hello, everyone. This is Jay Alders. I hope all of you guys had a safe and healthy and fun 4th of July. We sure did. For those of you in the Jersey Shore area, on July 21st, that's a Sunday, I will be in the historic Asbury Park Convention Hall, slinging some art prints, shaking hands, kissing babies, selling apparel. So come on by Asbury Park, New Jersey for the Asbury Park Bazaar. Also, I know a lot of you guys are entrepreneurs, business owners, artists. Did I say artists already? Anyway, a lot of you guys are working hard to achieve big things and chasing your dreams and pursuing your passions, and you can't do that without a great website. And in case you haven't discovered it yet, building websites is not the most fun or easy thing to do. But it doesn't have to be that way. Thanks to our friends at Shiny New Websites, you can actually have a website built within 1 week at a flat rate of only $2,500. So if you don't really feel like wrestling through the process for the next 3 months, you can go on shinynewwebsites.com, fill out some easy questions, and within 1 week, you'll have a new website. For any of you guys that are new to the show that don't know who Chelsea or I am, so I'm an artist. If you go to jalders.com, you can check my artwork out. It's pretty appropriate with this episode especially. A lot of my art is inspired by surf culture and beach, chicks in bikinis, yoga, outdoorsy stuff. Hopefully you'll like it. Check it out, please. Chelsea is a birth doula, and you could check out her services and what she does on ommamasdoulas.com. She actually just last week launched a new nonprofit called Roots and Wings Postpartum Foundation, which helps new mamas in need. So please check her out. She's doing some really great things. And I actually live painted a painting at her launching event last week, which you can check out on my Instagram if you are interested. I can't really leave you guys without one more quick thing. This is worth sticking around for. Thanks to you guys who have been leaving us just amazing reviews. We have 5-star reviews on iTunes, which is very helpful for us. We appreciate you guys taking the time to do that. We have a new review here to read for you. It's from Hoosterino, and it says it's titled Quality Time with Friends. And this person says, if only everyone could spend quality time talking about life with friends, I think the world might be a better place. In our busy schedules, it's hard to imagine finding the time or preparing good questions in advance, but I'm inspired to think about it differently because life is too short to not go deeper with those we love. Its fun, casual conversational approach is light, but allows the interview to tap into lots of relatable topics, a lot of other humans experience. Great stuff, Jay and Chelsea. Well, thank you, Hoosterino. And without further ado, let's get into our interview with our good friend Vince. Hey, Vince. We are actually doing this. Can you believe it?
Alrighty, we finally getting it together.
You're a tough cookie to catch.
Boy, oh boy. Yeah. Boy, time just flies by, doesn't it?
It sure does, man. So for everyone listening, we were hoping to get Vince on as one of the first people and you kind of chickened out on us. You didn't charge. You kind of backed off the wave a little bit.
Well, he said he wanted to listen to like 30 of them before
Well, I think I had listened to a couple of them,
Yeah.
but then the time went by.
You wanted to figure out what a podcast was first.
And, yeah.
So I'm stoked that we got you on here because, like, I feel like I don't know how long we've known each other. Probably
Boy, it's
15 years.
been a while now.
Probably close to
13 or
15
14.
years.
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
And I feel like every time we talk or have dinner together, like every time we'll leave and get in the car and go home. And on the car ride, I'm like, oh my God, I wish we had that recorded. You're like just like the man of stories.
Well, yeah. I mean, your story's amazing too. I mean, just
Not compared to yours.
No, but Vince has such an eloquent way of just like slipping it in. Like he'll just be like,
It's very
oh,
casual. Yeah, I was hanging
that
out with this
was
famous
TJ.
rock star guy. And
Yeah.
Oh, God.
so Vince, so before we dive into all your surfing accolades and all your accomplishments, I really want to know a part of your life that I know nothing about is like your childhood. I know you had a lot of stuff happen like in your teens and 20s that like propelled you into this crazy life that you've had. But what happened before that? What was Vince the kid like?
Oh, well, I guess I went to Long Branch High School.
Okay.
We're talking about New Jersey. And
That's a beach town for anyone that doesn't know.
beach town, yeah. And we, instead of like some kids would play on, in the woods and stuff, we had a beach to play on. So
Yeah.
we were in the rocks and getting crabs and stuff when we were kids. And we had a group that, we were all like within 5 blocks of each other, and the beach was 2 blocks away.
Yeah.
So we had a really, the ocean was the whole part of our lives. And then when surfing came along, I was in high school, and
Well, I want to know before that even. I do want to dive into surfing, and I'm like so curious of what pre-surfing Vince was like.
So like little kid. Did you have siblings, first of all?
have a
I have a
sister,
sister.
right? Yeah.
Okay.
Before that, I was in high school. My father passed away when I was a senior. And what had happened was my mom would get sick in the wintertime and get pneumonia from a harsh winter here. And so the doctor said, listen, you just got to go to a better climate. You got to, your odds would be you can't get hit like this again.
Yeah.
And so I took my father passed away.
What did he pass away from?
Just he worked at National Lead over there where,
jeez, okay.
right on where the bridge is there.
Yeah. Okay.
And heavy industrial.
So lead toxicity?
Leads. I mean, they're still working on a place now, 30 years later, to get that soil right. And it was right on the water down there.
Were there a lot of people that got sick from that?
And I imagine so.
Yeah.
It was a paint factory. And,
Okay.
And I'm sure it was all lead induced back then,
God.
my father's life.
Was it like lead toxicity that led him to getting...
Well, he had a
passing?
heart attack, so it's hard to really
Hard to-
say,
yeah.
the medicine isn't like now back then.
And how old was he?
That was in 67, 68. He was 65.
Wow.
So he was an older father too.
So, yeah,
Okay.
he was an older father.
Yeah.
And so when that happened, it sort of propelled me I had to step up. And I took my mother and my sister out to California.
Just randomly.
Just
Like to move there or to visit?
To move there.
Okay.
Yep.
What was it? So when you lost your dad, how was that for you? Did you immediately take over the patriarch role? Or were you like, and it's like, I would imagine being like crazy depressed, or like how did you cope with that?
It was, it didn't hit me hard like that. My father really wasn't involved with me, like play baseball with me or anything like that it really hit me hard in that way. And matter of fact, when I was surfing, he hardly ever came down to watch.
Oh,
where
really?
my mother would come down and watch me from above and come and go. And but we weren't involved. He was doing his thing, and he's sort of watched wrestling at home. And,
Okay.
And if I wanted to sit there and watch wrestling, that would be my dad time.
Okay.
It was really like, so when that happened, I sort of, I guess I had no choice. But I didn't get depressed about it or anything.
You didn't?
Just straight ahead.
It just felt like that was what was next.
Yeah. And I knew that since the spot I was in with my friends and being on a team and everything, I was going to come back, get my mom organized out there.
Yeah.
And maybe eventually go out there if things didn't go right, because we were a little lower than middle class family. We didn't have a lot going on, but we had everything we needed. So took took them out there, which was great. I landed Mom in Newport Beach.
Oh my gosh, not too shabby.
Which, no, she
Had
lived...
you been there before?
No. No, I haven't. I wasn't there.
Just watched the surf, watched like Endless Summer and said, I want to go there?
Yeah. I sort of knew Huntington Beach because of the contest, and they had them on TV, and the pier and all of that. And so I knew that area was sort of the location of it and everything. So didn't know a lot. I was just feeling it out. And she ended up getting this one room, little, beautiful little apartment right on B Street, just down the street from the pier. And I still can't, you couldn't even
you
get
have to pay
anything
millions
like that
for that
this.
now.
Oh, yeah. And then she had this wonderful little apartment, great landlord. And my sister got a little place after a while. They lived together for a while. And then my sister, got a job and started working. And then she got her own place eventually. So she'd always keep an eye on Mom. And so it went along like that. And
so then you immediately came back to surf in Jersey.
So I came back. Yeah, okay. I had this. I just got this one little room place that I could afford.
And you're like 18 at this point.
And
okay.
Yeah, I was just driving for about a year, and
I don't get how it wasn't like hard for you, your mom, or your sister to just pick up and go somewhere completely random and new. Like, there wasn't like the internet where you can Google what it's like. Like, didn't you guys have friends or connections here? That was.
But it was fun.
I was out to California.
Okay.
Now that I'm thinking about it, and I had the layout in my mind because I was from Huntington Beach. I was down to San Francisco. I came up to Huntington. A couple of friends of mine were going to college there.
Okay.
So they had a place right in Huntington. And from there, I went down to San Diego where a few other of my friends were going to college. And they had a law school right up in San Diego on Sunset Cliffs, which was a locals only spot. I mean, you didn't go to these places because, they didn't even want to see the pros around or anything like that. They were really innovators, surfers, focused. And at the time, a few friends were up in practicing, wanting to be lawyers. They were had law classes up above, and we all surfed. And I met a couple other guys there. So I got acclimated to the West Coast pretty well. I ended up, somebody dropped out of the law school up above, right on the cliffs. And I ended up getting his meal ticket and his room because everything was still available. And so I had breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And
oh my
what a crazy
on someone else's tuition?
On somebody else's, somebody else's dime.
That's amazing.
It was amazing. And back then we had these funny credit card numbers that you could use on the phone to call home. And they were just like bootleg numbers. And you just give the number to the operator. You had to talk to the operator and say, I'm calling on this number.
Right.
And somehow somebody gave me that. And I could call my mom back in Jersey and check in and see how everything's doing, tell her what I was doing because she was worried about me being out there.
So that must have been when you were like 17. So that was probably like the year before.
Yeah, I was 17.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you came back.
Guys, just started going to college and stuff like that.
Can you paint a picture for us of what that was like? Because you were there at like such a cool time, like at the peak of like the hippie movement, right?
It was.
Like literally like the peak, right? Like 67, 68.
It was just...
Like flower power full on.
Oh, it was just
And you're in California, this cool guy with long hair and a beard. Like, was that just like a crazy free-for-all? Like
it was.
Let me live through you and tell me what that was like.
The whole thing was, it was just pre-Woodstock.
Yeah.
And the whole crazy thing was Vietnam was going on. And you did not want to go to Vietnam.
No.
I mean, I already saw guys, for a couple of friends of mine coming back with one leg and in a wheelchair, and you were just not going there. So what ended up happening with me was I had to make a decision. I wasn't going to college. I wanted to get into some kind of straightforward, well, I had it in my mind I was in the surf business, hired by a guy who had the first surf shop in North Long Branch. But when I came back, me and two other friends joined the reserves. So believe it or not, I was in the Army.
I don't believe it.
During Vietnam.
Wow.
But the reserves weren't getting called to go over.
So was that kind of your workaround where you're like, I'll join the reserves and
we had to go each weekend. And
my dad did the same thing. He joined the Air Force Reserves like a couple days before he got his draft card.
Oh, man, that was and it was a lottery back then, so you didn't know what your number was going to be called.
Was there any part of you that was like, screw this, I'm going to Canada or Mexico or?
No, I don't know. Back then I heard about everybody going to Canada and a lot of things. I mean, there was guys, Bruce talks about it, Springsteen in his book, where guys would cut off their toes.
Oh my God, yeah.
Just not to go.
You like see that in movies, but it's crazy to be living in that.
But you didn't, it's better than there was so many casualties.
Yeah.
Year after year. And, we were protesting and the whole thing, but.
So you weren't like full on flower power hippie Vince, like burning your draft card, going to Canada, growing your hair out. Like no, that wasn't you.
No,
you're more conservative-ish.
I was just I mean, we were all the hippie dippy guys, and it was just the older people just looked at you and you straighten up. Will you straighten up? Jeez. Everybody's father had their own. All my friends had their own story about us. What they thought of them and stuff. But
so we're building up to once you're back on the East Coast, you get hired by the surf shop in Long Branch. Is that kind of the story? So you're like 18, 19?
Yeah, I was. First surf team I was on was Bob Kislin's.
Okay,
it was a sporting goods store, and they sold surfboards, and my first surfboard was a California company. And I had a choice to either get a set of drums. This was a big fork in the road for me because it was either get a set of drums or a surfboard.
Sounds like Jersey. And it's pretty much your options.
I was lucky. I was lucky to get a bicycle the year before. So they were big items for our family.
Yeah.
And so there was a big fork in the road, and I remember my mother had to charge it. And it was $150, and so that started it. In a year and a half, 2 years, we all had surfboards, all our whole crew, and we were watching Wild World of Sports. That's the only thing we could relate to.
What got you into that in the first place? Because surfing was still relatively new as far as mainstream goes, except for like, I guess, the Beach Boys and like Endless Summer. Was that the appeal for you?
Yeah. I guess we saw it on Wild World of Sports. And then we were at the beach so much, when we saw a lifeguard with a surfboard, we were just enamored. We just chased the car.
Yeah.
And wait for him to get to a light. And we ran up to the car, and the guy pulled over, and he let us look at his board. And then that sort of clicked for.
So shortboard or longboard at first?
Longboard. Oh yeah,
all longboarding
shortboards.
Then, right?
Yeah,
okay.
No shortboards yet, and they were heavy. We used to carry them on our head, of course, and couldn't put your arm around them because we were too small. Just couldn't get your arm around them. So that got us going. While we were sports, watching the pier in Makaha back then in Hawaii. That was our link to it. We didn't have videos. We didn't have anything like that to go by. And I surfed. My next team was Monmouth Beach Surf Team, which carried all Dewey Weber surfboards.
Okay.
And that team grew and really made its mark. We started entering contests. Contests became a really big thing. Your district and teams became a real good thing. Atlantic City had Reef Surf Shop with a lot of good talent, and we had a lot of talent. And there was a shop in Belmar called Manatee with Les Reitman.
Okay. Yeah.
They had a lot of talent. So the next thing, first we were at clubs surfing against each other, a little club thing. You get a club jacket. And I remember our first club grew so fast. We had 36 members.
Whoa.
And we had dues, and we'd meet in the Fratton's basement like once a month during the summer. It was really a great place to be for a kid.
And what did the beaches look like at that point? Like you could surf anywhere, right?
No, you couldn't.
Oh, really? Okay.
That was another thing.
Okay.
They didn't want you surfing. There was no surfing beaches. So there was constantly a thing where the police were always chasing us.
Oh my God.
And we'd paddle. We'd just paddle. We would never go in, and they wouldn't know where we'd come out because we were just paddling. And they didn't quite know where we would come out, so we'd come out as quickly as we could.
Right.
But one time they wanted to arrest me and Andrew Fratton. I'll never forget it. And Mr. Fratton was down there.
And you're in the reserves at this point, right?
And this was prior. This was prior to that. We were a little younger. And I guess we were about 16 right then. And he says, "What are you guys chasing these guys for?" And they wanted to arrest us. He said, "Arrest me." And so they took him down to City Hall, and he's looking up at the desk sergeant, and he goes, what's he doing here? He goes, "He was surfing." And so from then, he goes, "Take him back home." He said, "Don't bother me with that." And so the next council meeting, it came up that we needed a surfing beach. And so Matilda Terrace was created for our own beach. And that was like the first one for us.
Wow. Where is that? That's Long Branch?
Yeah. You know where Max's Hot Dog is? Yeah. Right there. That's Matilda Terrace.
Okay. And that's where your first shop was, right? Like right there?
No, that's a little further north, Long Branch.
Okay.
So we got our first surfing beach. And then from there, the city had a surfing contest, and they held it at Matilda Terrace. And then other towns followed suit. And after that, when I was in, but Mr. Fratton got arrested. That was, it was in the paper, his picture, the whole thing.
Gosh.
Like it was a big deal.
Yeah.
And as time went on, and we were in for the reserves for being in the Army, our weekend warrior thing was out at Sandy Hook, which is just phenomenal breaks back then. Yeah. I mean, it was before all this replenishment and everything like that. It was one of the best breaks on the East Coast. And so we'd go out there.
Was the nude beach still there? Was it there then?
No, none of that was there. It was all Army. It was Army base.
It's like picturing like flower power and naked people on the beach.
Yeah, no, they had a missile silo.
Not fulfilling all my imagination.
Yeah, everybody thinks that, right? Sandy Hook, the nude beach.
It's never what you want it to be when you go there, though. It's usually just like naked men who just finally can be naked in public. Yeah.
Have you been there?
To Sandy Hook? Yeah.
To the nude beach?
Yeah.
I've never been there.
Come on.
I used to laugh because a few of my friends said, we took the boat over and we were floating out. They'd take the boat and just hang out by the surf and check everybody out. It was funny, but I never went there. It was for some reason we always stop at the first cove and go surfing.
Funny.
Well, it's not too late, Vince.
Yeah,
we were on our way down there, but we ended up surfing for 5 hours and go, oh, we're going next time.
Yeah,
oh my God.
And so
surfing always took priority. I imagine.
Yeah. But I heard it was quite a scene. Anyway, that was the base over there, and we used to have to sneak in. After that, we had to sneak into Sandy Hook. You couldn't drive in unless you had military ID.
But there was like a perfect break happening.
Perfect.
Right there.
I mean, so we used to go right where the bridge is now in the Highlands, park our cars there, and we'd get driven there. And by then, Andrew's father, Mr. Fratton, he used to take us down there and a couple of older guys, and we'd have to go down and walk our way in like you would go to Trestles, something like that, but all the way along. And so we had the state troopers didn't want us out there.
I'd imagine.
And they used to come out on the rocks and try to get us in, and we just wouldn't. And one guy pulled out his gun and actually fired it in the water.
No way.
Yeah. We'll never forget that.
Different times, huh?
Different times.
That would be like a
he
week's
got
worth
so
of reports
frustrated.
now.
Like if you didn't listen to a state trooper back then, you were.
It's kind of the same now, but there's more cameras now.
And they can't shoot guns.
Oh yeah.
I feel like a lot of them still would like to shoot guns at people.
So we were just shaking our heads.
So we should like tell everyone that's not from Jersey. So Sandy Hook is like the northern peninsula of the beach,
and you can see New York City.
You could see the whole skyline.
You could actually, when you're surfing at Sandy Hook, that particular day that the World Trade Center got hit.
It was great waves that day. Yeah,
it was great waves.
It's your birthday today.
Yes.
Oh,
Happy birthday! My phone just
Happy
texted me.
birthday.
It's Vince Tronic's birthday.
Man, why didn't you tell us?
Oh boy!
Sorry.
Happy
birthday!
Wow, Vince.
What a day!
Thank you.
Man, I'm like avoiding. I haven't been on Facebook much, so I would not have seen that until like tomorrow.
I saw the text. I'm like, that can't be right. What's going on? Sorry.
Whoa, dude!
Do your homework right on the air,
Vince. Is it public?
Anyway,
is it public how old you are? Or is that
No, I'm 69 now.
69? Dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's quite a year.
Amazing.
And we're talking about 69, so it's funny. 1969.
Yeah.
Our one son, Grayson, like every number, they're in like this phase where they just make up numbers. Like we're like,
I think it's a big number.
you know,
if
how
you just say a
many
lot of
how many
numbers.
pretzels do you want? And he'll say like 69, 1006 or something. Like just make up
but
a number.
it's always 69.
yeah.
But his new thing, because I'll like, you know, as a parent, you bribe children sometimes, and I'll always be like, I'll give you $1 if you do all the laundry or whatever. And he, like a week ago, was like, I'll give you $69 if you give me a cookie. He said that to me. I was like, wow, I'm getting $69. That's great.
So we're going in the cookie business. apparently.
Yeah, it's quite a cookie.
Oh, that's unbelievable.
So smart. But anyway, okay, so
that's a magic number somehow.
I know. I don't know
Worked
why
out.
it's stuck for him. It's really funny.
Holy crap. So you guys were getting shot at in the water. So
Okay.
that's a
Yeah,
good one.
that was something. And so we just said, we're not going in. Forget it. Let's throw us in the car,
Can
take
you,
our
like,
boards.
Can you describe what the culture was like then? Because like that's something that you can't see in just like newspaper clippings or photos or something. Like just like what was it like?
Like, what was
then?
the day to
What was
day
the
in
culture
public?
like?
Yeah.
I know you were like at one point in your life you were a partier and you're a hippie. So like throw some stories at me. Like give me a sense of what it was like to be.
I guess it was a great time because of the bands going on at the time too. Rock and roll was, I mean, you had Janis Joplin, you had Jimi Hendrix.
Weren't they playing in
and
Asbury?
they were playing.
had-
They actually, Led Zeppelin played at Convention Hall right in Asbury Park.
They actually missed Woodstock because of it.
Zeppelin
And-
did, yeah.
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 And the Stones played, the Doors were there.
Did you see any of those shows?
And yeah.
All of them?
Oh, yeah.
Oh my god.
We were right there. Asbury Park is
Do you
right
remember
next
them? Were you
door.
like tripping
Sure.
balls or like?
Sure.
What was your party?
I even
what-
have a couple ticket stubs I could
Come
dig out
on.
from Led
Oh my
Zeppelin,
God.
half a
Oh
ticket
my
stub.
god, I am
That's
so
amazing.
jealous.
Yeah, it was really something.
Were you like a heavy partier back then?
And no, weekends. Just
Weekend?
weekends, you know, you get your little quart of beer and
Okay.
we'd go down the beach, start a fire.
Okay.
And we all used to hang out in this little, the south side of Long Branch called West End. They had a Carvel.
Yeah.
They had
The
another
Carvel's still there, isn't
hamburger place. Yeah, it's still
Yeah.
there, right on the corner. And there was a good surf break right at the end of that street on Brighton Avenue. So we'd go down there, or we'd go to Matilda at night, and we had our different spots. And
What was the crowd like? What was because like now in Asbury Park, for anyone that doesn't know, it's like very hipster, very gentrified. Lots of very well-to-do people, but also everyone that's just trying to be way too cool. Everyone's got tattoos and just piercings, and everyone's just cool,
Oh,
right? So
yeah.
like, what was it like back
and
then?
then you
Was-
have the Club Paradise.
yeah.
That whole scene, right?
I don't know
I
if I
mean,
knew
that's
about
a
that.
whole LG.
Was that like happening then, or you're saying that's
No,
happening
that
now?
wasn't happening at
Okay.
all. We didn't know much about that.
Yeah.
You know, any of the, the people were very much in the closet back then.
Yeah.
If they were, you wouldn't know.
Yeah.
Not at all.
But like,
So what was Asbury like? Can we talk about
Yeah.
that a little bit?
Asbury was, it turned out, right at then, it turned out to be, it was flourishing. I have wonderful pictures of all the rides on the ocean down there.
Yeah.
And I took up photography for a little while, so I did these nighttime shots where I have everything's lit up on the boardwalk and Convention Hall was going on. And we were a little younger. They had an ice skating ring at
That's cool.
Casino Arena, they called it, which was just at the south side of Asbury Park, behind the Carousel building.
Yeah.
The merry-go-round was there. They had all kinds of, the huge building with Tilly, and you'd go for the brass ring. I mean, it was action-packed. And when you were young, your parents would take you there, and it was just the place to be.
So it was like that feel of like the Ocean City Boardwalk where there's actual like stuff, or like seaside. Like it was like alive and like there's work
the
going
whole
on.
really saltwater taffy vibe.
but with the Doors and Janis Joplin playing, like
No, that's so wild.
that's
and Convention
amazing.
Hall was a
Wow.
venue. Yes. So it was, you see Mr. Peanut walking around with a cane and a font thing, and just the whole vibe was a carnival thing.
Yeah.
And
So could you like at that point were you like riding your bike over to Asbury at night, or like was it?
eventually, we weren't really doing that. We were in high school. We were making our skateboards in woodshop class,
Okay.
and so we skated everywhere.
Okay.
We weren't driving yet, and
cool.
so we would hitchhike actually to Asbury from Long Branch. Hitchhiking was big. And so every now and then they'd pick us up, even with the long hair, or you get somebody who
Yeah, like
Yeah,
freaking
so we-
hippies get in the car.
get in. And Ocean Avenue was just straight ahead, so it'd run right through Deal into Asbury Park.
Yeah.
And we'd be there, and we skate the boardwalk, and it used to be where McLuhan's is now, that architectural next to
the jazz club.
that beautiful jazz club upstairs. They had these ramps that came down they're still there.
They're still
now.
there, yeah.
They're still there.
Oh, I didn't know those were from back then. Okay.
Yeah, we used to hitchhike just to go there to
my
skate
God.
skate the
That must
ramps
be
and
so
go around
cool,
and
going
be
there now
spiral.
and remembering all this
You guys
stuff.
should get some videos of you skating it now. They would love it. It's like a high-end jazz club and wedding venue.
Oh,
You should
yeah,
go skate
wedding
it.
It's your
venue.
birthday. You got to do that. That would be amazing.
We'll get our kids out there. Next generation.
Oh.
So, Jay, I take my sleep very seriously. You know that.
I know this. This
Yes.
is true. You don't mess with Chelsea's sleep.
And here's the thing is that I'm a birth doula. So it's actually kind of funny because
You don't get much sleep anyway.
I don't get any sleep. It's really kind of crazy. The game changer for me for getting back into a really good sleep cycle has been
Dun, dun, dun.
CBD oil, for
You down
sure.
with CBD?
So Jay did some due diligence and found a absolutely well-known, actually, right? And
Very
phenomenal
well-known
brand.
company that decided to actually partner with us, which we're excited about.
Super excited. And
Charlotte's Web.
what a better fit for our first full-time affiliate, right? Like full
Yeah,
on.
we're both stoked. We've been using CBD for, I don't know, like half a year or a year.
Probably
long
coming
time.
up to a year, yeah. But it actually gets me like really back into the exact flow of sleep that I need.
And I use it to not be such a stressful husband. As you can tell, it does actually help, though. I have a lot of everyday stress from work and from being a dad, and I find that it does kind of take the edge off.
Yeah, so we got some links and some codes for you guys.
Yeah, so if you guys are interested in checking out Charlotte's Web CBD, you can go to jalders.com/CBD. That's going to get you 10% off everything except for the bulk and the original. And we have to say this, and I'm saying this in italics, that everything we've said has not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. And none of this is intended to diagnose, treat, or cure, or prevent any diseases. So we are not doctors. We don't play them on the podcast. Once again, that's jalders.com/CBD. Don't forget to use code ALDERS for 10% off. That's spelled ALDERS.
That's so cool. Okay, so you're moving through all this. I want to hear a little bit about when the surf shop stuff started happening for you.
Oh, yeah. So we've been surfing a couple years now, and winter surfing is hard, but we just persevered. We had we had dive suits back then. You used to get the chafe on the neck, and you'd go to school and the teachers would think you had hickeys on your neck. It was so funny.
Which you probably did also.
Yeah, I think that was a thing. Yeah, that was a thing back then. And so anyway, it was a tough winter thing, and the guys in Florida, boy, we just envied them because they just had the weather. But we had solid waves in the winter, which was a great thing.
Yeah.
And where was I going to go with this?
So the surf shop.
Oh, yeah. Going from Bob Kislin's team, these two other surf shops popped up, Manatee and Monmouth Beach Shop,
Okay.
and Bill Minder in North Long Branch. Exclusive Dewey Weber sales. And we qualified. There was three of us, Joe Woolley, Andrew Fratton, and myself, for the Weber team. So, and then we had a couple guys from Rumson, Gilbertson, and a couple guys from Middletown. And we built this, they built a dynamic team. We had a captain, Charlie Kuhns, who sort of mentored us. And Bill was sort of king of the roost there, and he didn't put up with any nonsense. So if you wanted to do that, you weren't going to do it at the shop or in the parking lot, which was directly across the street from the surf. So we were really in a straight line where there was no fooling around when you were on his time as far as the surf team goes. And he sponsored us to go to contests from all the way down to Maine to Florida. We ended up in Cocoa Beach at the end of the season. Then we'd have our East Coast Championships at Virginia Beach back then. It wasn't at Hatteras yet. And so, you had a rating system back then, and it was 1A, 2A, 3A, 4A. And it was just like about 12 guys in 4A who were really, at the top of the
All East Coasters?
all East Coasters.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the East Coast thing. The ESA, which in our area, Cecil Lear, got us all, and somehow he put us together in these contests, and he had volunteer judges, and they had big contests at Belmar, state championships and stuff like that. But getting back to the shops, Bill Minder, he got us down to Virginia Beach. I remember the first time I couldn't go to Virginia Beach. My mother wouldn't let me because it was just, he thought I was too young to travel 6 hours away. And, with a bunch of kids, we'd load up in a wagon and head down there. So finally she realized who Bill Minder was, and she gave me the okay to go to next year. And I was really, really happy about that. Then I'll never forget that.
Yeah.
So, did have a good showing down there for my age and everything in junior men's. I ended up made in the finals. I think it was 66, 67. I got 4th place in the finals on the East Coast.
Man.
So that was pretty good. There wasn't too many guys from up north doing very well when you had guys surfing year round, and the Florida guys would just come up and they were heavy hitters. They
I know,
were
that's
just
the thing.
tremendous.
It's like when you start to see guys like Kelly Slater coming out of there and all that, you're like, they have crap waves. How does that happen? But it's like they have a year round working with really small waves. So they're like making those waves look amazing because they can rip on them.
Yeah,
it's pretty crazy.
Crush 2-foot waves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like they can do insane things on these little waves.
So you put them on a good wave and it's just like opens up a whole new world, and got 11-time world champ from the East Coast.
So you ended up buying Islanders, right? You were like 22?
Yeah. So how the
heck did that happen?
What had happened was Bill Minder, with his shop, got hit hard with the Vietnam War, and everybody was getting a bit older. And anybody who was buying Shortboard Revolution came out. And the models were changing so fast that Weber came out with the Strato series, and then the DNT series, and then the V-bottoms came out. And to keep up with that, and at the time, people were going to college, they were starting to raise a family, and you had to surf pretty much to stay on a shorter board now. You had to, be out there from riding a log to going short board. So you had to surf, and a lot of people fell to the wayside. So the shop sort of fell apart because the clothing industry wasn't set yet. Yeah. So all that he had, or those shops had back then, were wetsuits, T-shirts, and surfboards. And you couldn't survive that seasonal business on that kind of, in the beginning, everybody had to have a board. It was that, Beach Boys, the whole movement.
Get it just to get it.
Gidget, and everybody, what they call them? I don't know if the term was when you ride around with the board on your car.
Yeah.
And you didn't surf. It was
kook.
A kook.
It was like, what do we call them? Oh, I can't think of it now, but probably people know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah. But we just shake our heads, but everybody had to have a board.
Yeah.
And it was pretty tremendous. And Tinker had Challenger Eastern had opened up back then too. It was Tinker West who had come back from California, so he had a lot of knowledge from Challenger Challengers, and he opened up Challenger East here and he created a magnificent team too. So there were some powerhouse teams that everybody had to stay on their toes, and really there was a lot of stiff competition. Guys like. And another factory in Lakewood. But a guy named Mitch Gerard came out of Tinker's factory, which is he's a unbelievable shaper in San Francisco now, and a real stylist, and a lot of talent came out. So the team thing was big. That was really big. And
so were you starting to see, like, with the boards in general, like now that we're going from these really big, very heavy longboards, and now we're starting to get these short boards, like, was this the first time you're starting to see people that you call like creative artist type shapers? Like they were starting to see that this was like a creative endeavor,
like very innovative.
Just a bit, because back then you would have to do anything well, you'd have to buy a 55-gallon drum of resin. And
that's expensive.
To have a basic factory or a couple rooms where you could sand and everything, and so that was quite an endeavor.
Yeah.
And that's what Tinker was one of the first to pull that off. And at the same time, the whole vibe was Bruce was actually, playing in Asbury Park at night with Springsteen and with his band, and he had a music studio in his surf and factory.
Okay.
So
that was in Tinker's factory.
Yeah, in Tinker's factory.
This is like 72, or when is this?
And this was, it was, I'd say 72.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is Bruce, he's just
early
like
70s.
He's probably a couple years younger than you?
So he's 1 year older.
Oh, 1 year older. Okay.
Yeah, Bruce, 1 year older.
And Bruce didn't have, he wasn't like Bruce yet. Like, he wasn't like,
No, but he would just do these local shows, dynamic shows that.
But he had albums out then, I think, right? Like, or
not quite yet.
Not yet. So that was like literally at the beginning.
No, we just knew him, and he was just starting to go down to Virginia College down there and get a following down there, and he'd play there every 4 months, just to make money to come back and so they could survive. And
so was Tinker Shop in Long Branch, or that was in Belmar?
That was in Neptune.
Oh, Neptune.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he had a factory right there. And
so then tell me the story. I remember you said maybe it was Tinker's shop, but I remember you saying you'd be like working and they'd be like practicing in the back.
Yeah. We a friend of mine would be there, and we'd go to get his board, and Bruce actually slept in the shop.
Okay.
Tinker they had little cots back there, or sleeping bags. And I remember and I said, should I wake him up? And he'd go, no. He was practicing all night. They were playing over here, upstage or something like that. So let him sleep. So, we grab our stuff and go.
And of course, now that's like really, really awesome. But at the time, it was just like another music guy, dirtbag dude.
Oh, yeah.
Sleeping on the couch.
Oh, yeah. We were just, it was full.
It must have been so trippy to see his career unfold.
And it was. It was just such a part of our lives.
Yeah.
They were trying to find their niche, and I was trying to find my niche.
Yeah.
And everybody was setting their sails for something. Nobody knew, and the war was raging.
And if you got that drum set, you might have been in the band.
I know. Could have been you.
Could have been. It was
was it the original, is that E Street Band, the E Street Band? Like, did they stay the same guys?
Same guys, the basics, the organ player, Federici, and Mad Dog. And all these guys, when I opened the Islanders, they lived in a house behind me.
Okay.
So it was like it was pretty much feast or famine if they were playing. So it was hard times, and they were all roommates. And it was tough because, everybody was trying to, don't eat my food. And, and you take Clarence's food, right?
Yeah.
And Clarence would just go get some he would, catch a couple of fish, clean them, and put them in there and have a nice dinner. Leftovers be in there. I remember going to the house one time. He opened the refrigerator, and his dinner was gone. And I just left. I said,
I'm out of here.
I'm out of here. He said, I could just see him turning, his veins coming out.
Man.
Stuff like that was going on. So
were you going to the practices and hanging out with them?
Yeah, I went to a couple practices, and they used to play Monmouth College for free. Mm-hmm. And then one time they set up right in the park these were unique things that would happen, and Tinker would have the soundboard, and right in West End, they set up right in the park there, and the city let them play, and it was outstanding, and just what a place to be. And then once he played in North Long Branch, right where my shop was, right on the beach. They set up this makeshift stage, and I'll never forget, it was 4 foot that day. People were surfing, he was playing, and it was just like, I can't even believe it happened.
Is it so surreal for you to think of those days and then have a night like See Here Now where you see a million people doing the same thing, but Bruce is on stage and it's literally a million people crammed into Asbury?
Yeah,
what the craziest thing.
It's amazing how.
And you're wow, I saw that for free and was surfing while I watched him back in the day. Isn't that crazy?
And that was for free, and it was just.
So I don't know this story, but the whole East Street, that was in Belmar, the Belmar East Street, right?
Yeah.
Belmar, were they living there
David
at some point?
Sanchez, their organ player, lived on East Street.
And they just needed a part of the band name?
They needed a name, and they said, let's That's it. They picked that out of the hat.
That's awesome. So then once he was getting more, like as he was rising to fame, were you guys starting to see more famous people come through? Or like, was there like a time when you started to see, whoa, he's really catching on and there was bigger bands coming through with him or anything like that?
Yeah, that was unique because at the time, then Tinker took the band out to the West Coast.
Okay.
Because
so was Tinker their manager at that point?
That was another fantastic thing. Tinker was their manager.
Okay.
Yeah, he had the flatbed truck to put the amps in, and he used to cart them to, as far as he could to Virginia, where they all of a sudden they built up an impressive following down there, and to colleges.
Yeah.
Saw him play at Rutgers. Saw him play. We used to just follow him. We used to follow him around, and it was $3.50 at the door, $1.50 at the door, and it was a lot of fun. Even in the Brick Township, they had the ice skating ring over there, Bricktown Ice Skating Ring, and Grand Funk Railroad was playing.
Oh my gosh!
And Bruce was playing also. So Grand Funk had to do something, so they played first, and it was tremendous. It was just, and we were all sitting in the seats at the ice skating ring. They had a stage set up. And they put chairs in, and Bruce came on second, and Grand Funk couldn't believe his act. I mean, he just turned the place inside out, and that sticks in my mind too. An ice skating ring that right in Brick here.
Yeah.
But yeah. Well, anyway, surfing was taking off, and Bruce was taking off, and we were each following our niche. So when the Monmouth Beach Surf Shop went out, the Islanders was just opened up. It was a little hole in the wall shop. They had a shop down in Bayhead, which was been there for a year, and they decided to branch out and come up our way. And they were sort of getting out of it, the two brothers that were running it, and I was ended up being right on their team right away. And I forgot, I left out that I was working at the Monmouth Beach Surf Shop. That was one of my first jobs, and sometimes I hitchhiked to get to work, or Mom would drop me off, to get there, because it was North Long Branch. It was about, I guess, 3 miles away.
Okay.
And so he gave me a job, and that was just the ultimate job, selling surfboards. And I found it that people, I was a good surfer, so I knew what I was talking about. And people came back and reordered, and I did a lot of custom boards that Dewey would build. And so when I went out of business, went right over to the Islanders, which was a block away, right on the ocean. And they sort of faded out, and I was working in the afternoons, and I just kept the shop open. And finally, they were sort of bowing out, and I said, I'll buy this inventory on time, because I didn't have any money to do that. Yeah. So what I did was I worked 3 jobs. I worked the surf shop. I worked construction for a half a day. And I worked the surf shop from 1 o'clock to 5 o'clock. And then I delivered Chicken Delight at night till 10 o'clock after 6 o'clock. And it was just like, it was something that I was doing, and it was working a little bit. Yeah. And then I bought, back then I brought clothing in, and that was, a whole thing to do. Then the sandals kicked in, and then... So
you kind of bought the inventory and took over the rent?
Yeah, I took over the rent.
You kind of worked out terms where as stuff sold, you'd give them money, I assume?
Yeah, and that's what it would be. They would show up once a month, and I would have an envelope for them.
Okay.
Wow. And I've just paid everything off.
And how long did that last?
It probably lasted a year and a half.
Okay.
To pay them off with the inventory,
yeah,
and stuff like that. I just put it all back in, and I was working as much as I could, and then surfing as much as I could. The shop would be closed if there was waves.
Yeah,
it wasn't that dynamic, like people would wait for you, and go, "Oh, we'll come back later."
That's like the only business I could see you owning, because you don't come off as like being this like hustling entrepreneur guy, but like if there was waves, they just close the shop. That sounds like your pace.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That was it. And run down to Sandy Hook, or right across the street, or North Long Branch, USO. So many people started surfing there.
So then what were some of your biggest wins with that shop? Because I know you have a lot of pride in that shop. So over the years from owning it, what did you feel like were your biggest like pride moments in that place?
I guess I was really proud of my teams. The these were little guys, they were still in school, and like I'm on my way, and I had Bill instilled such a leadership position that kept us all in line and traveled up and down the East Coast. So I had that vibe that I could easily pass on to these new little the Groms that were coming up.
Yeah.
So having a full-on skateboard team and a full-on surf team that were winning was really, that was accolades for me. That was just far beyond anything. You couldn't pay for that.
Yeah, that's cool.
And I built a thing where I started working with the city, and I'd had my guys working for the recreation program, teaching safety in like an hour with the boys and an hour with the girls in their gymnasiums. So they had a little side job doing that. And then I used to do assemblies at the high schools. And the Islanders team would come in and we'd set up a little ramp. And, I talked up safety and what we had to do. And we used elbow pads and they just loved it. I mean,
cool.
it just created such a, the teachers were behind it and other schools wanted me to come in and do it, and it was just started turning the other direction where skateboarders were reckless and all of that. So then some contests came along, and then we were talking about the contest I did at the casino in Asbury Park, which I had a backer, and he, whatever it took, he was building ramps for me in there, and I think I've had the largest skateboard contest on the East Coast to date. It was 1977. And
what a great time for skateboarding too. Like Dogtown guys.
Dogtown was on fire.
I mean, that's like skating was kind of born almost then.
And my guys were trying to emulate them in the pools. They go to pools that have pumps, pump out all the pools and deal.
Yeah.
And just, they had mops, pumps, everything in the cars. And
oh my God.
And park the cars a little ways away so the police wouldn't know you were in these private mansion homes, and ride their pools. And they were so good at it.
So they would go break into people's backyards and pump out their pool.
Oh yeah, there'd be a little left. The pools are drained for the.
I'm pro skating, but I would kill someone.
Yeah,
it's like the winter time, right? Or
it'd be the winter time.
It was mostly
after Memorial Day.
I mean, we did that growing up. There was this one house in Jackson that when I was probably in my 20s. And we found this one house in the middle of the woods that someone found, and it had maybe 3 feet of water. And we pumped it out, and it was like a secret spot for a while until it got blown up. Yeah. You had to earn stuff back then. Even my heyday in that period of my life was much later than yours, but even then we still had to find the ramp or the spot or make something. And now it's every town has a skate park, and the kids are just bitching it's not good enough or it's not whatever. And back then, to have a skate park would have seemed like a dream.
A legit ramp somewhere.
We had our friends had half pipes in the backyard, and you're talking about sneaking on beaches to go surfing. What a different world now.
Oh yeah. So they were tactical, and so it was really, really, and they were good. They were good kids. They were, and I'd have to get permission actually for the younger ones who was, waist high. They wanted to participate in the assembly, so I had to get the moms to let Jay come with us to the assembly, and they were on board with it. So I had to get permissions to take them to places and stuff like that. So the teams were a big part of the Islanders, which I learned from previously from my mentors.
So you, at this point, you're surfing so much, where were your aspirations as far as competing? Did you just stop, or where were you?
Competing got bigger and bigger, and probably the biggest part of my life when I was younger was I was put on the Weber team. I was on the Mama's Beach team, but I was put on the Dewey Weber's team, which was had special jackets, and he for 68 World Contest was in Puerto Rico, and they actually sent 3 of us from our team to Puerto Rico to participate in the trials.
So cool.
And that was just the first time I've ever rode a reef. I mean, a reef break. We were just riding Jersey or California, I should say. California was a place, but being in the tropics like that and and just seeing this talent come in. It was Nat Young and Nueva Reno. I mean, these guys, Australia, the whole international crew was there. And for me, being a senior in high school and just being shipped there, it was Bonnie Bell Cosmetics was one of the sponsors because they made sunblock. And
how'd you do in the
Dewey
contest?
Weber. Did pretty good, moved along pretty exactly good, but we were juniors. We weren't into we weren't going to be on Wild World of Sports or anything like that.
Yeah.
But just the whole experience.
Just brushing elbows at that
got
point
up a
with
couple,
these guys.
got through a few heats, and the whole East Coast, each section had their own guys there from Virginia, North Carolina, from Florida. And so we got to know each other too from the contest. So it was great rubbing elbows with guys like, it was Ricky Rasmussen actually from New York, and we had friends tabling in Florida, and so we'd get to be together and be in a place like that when you're in high school. That was overwhelming. And then this past year was the 50th anniversary of the World Contest in Puerto Rico, and they invited the finalists back there, and they made a huge thing. They actually had a parade in
cool.
Rincon for it. And I was with Nat Young, who was we became friends because he rode for Dewey Weber back then, world champion. And Nat Young came, Fred Hemming came from Hawaii, David Nueva came, Reno came. And so it was really a great reunion of all this talent.
Yeah.
And I was in November, for me, Nat would go to me, you want to go? I said, I'm going to do Dawn Patrol tomorrow and beat everybody out. And he goes, I'll meet you. He said, do you want to do Dawn Patrol? I said, yeah. And he said, I'll meet you in the lobby. And I was doing Dawn Patrols with Nat Young for all week long, just me and him.
Cool.
And I was listening to his stories.
He's a legend.
Which were incredible. He's got a new book coming out, so he was telling me chapters about that.
His son
He's
rips.
doing it. Yeah. Bo Young. Yeah, both his sons. And so just getting I had his poster on my wall when I was just 15, 14.
Yeah.
And I'm doing Dawn Patrols with him, and just this past year, it was just surreal.
So then how many of those guys that you were like kind of, even if you weren't friends with, but competing with at that point, like really moved on to like, because this next chapter in surfing was huge. It was like going from those little contests to like, let's start making money on this stuff. So do you know a lot of guys that kind of ran through it from the beginning? Yeah,
for me, well, it was, in the beginning, it was like Greg Masenko opened Grog's in Seaside Heights, which was a huge...
That's kind of where your shop was, right? Grog's? Or was that not around anymore?
Would that be more
towards
towards you?
Grog's when I was a kid.
And then we had like Bill Lammers, who had Brave New World in the middle. And I was the northernmost shop before Sandy Hook. And as time went on, Bare Wires opened up, not Bare Wires, Inlet Outlet opened up in Manasquan. Mm-hmm. So we had there was 3 of us in the beginning, which, and there was no cell phones. So when we talked to each other, we all had stories of what's going on. And their guys would like to come to Sandy Hook. So that whole vibe was really good too. So we started really networking and meeting other guys. And like, Greg went on with his shop, Bill went on with his, and I went on with mine. And so, talent-wise, as far as surfing goes, I was fortunate enough to turn it into something. Yeah. And where, my mother and father would always go, "You're not going to make a living out of surfing. You're not going to make a living out of surfing." Yeah. And, and that was the honest truth, actually. Nobody was making a living out of surfing.
There was no money in it at that point.
No, not a bit.
I'm curious for people listening that have a passion of some sort, and maybe they're earlier in life, maybe they're in the phase right now where they're like, what do I do with this passion? And like, was there the flip side of it where you also saw friends of yours that maybe didn't drop it but went on to do more traditional things and make tons of money and achieve whatever it might be? Was there a side of you that was like, oh, maybe I should have done that, or look at those guys making more than me or doing more than me? Was there that side of you ever?
No, I don't think so, because I think a lot of people in our particular area, if they wanted a couple guys moved on to Wall Street because New York was right here, or you would have a commute a little bit, which wasn't too bad back then. New York was an hour away, and nothing that really, they went with what their fathers were doing back then generally. If they had a painting business or they had electric business, they'd fall into that slot. And so just surfing was a little tougher to,
you must have seen so many people just dropping off, like guys that you were like, oh, they're going to be surfing with me forever.
Yeah.
And then they just kept just getting out of shape, I'm sure, and working too much, and life happens.
Yeah. And
so at this point, like, it sounds like to me, the way you're describing it, you were a pretty straight arrow. Like, you were like, I had a very structured life. You were doing all these things that were like, you're busy. So life was going. I know somewhere in here, alcohol took over. Like, you were drinking a lot. So what age did you see that sort of move into your life?
Well, sort of what happened with that was I had, the surf shop had expanded. I had grown, and I had, it was a full-on success. And I was able to go Hawaii, take off for a month and a half, go to Hawaii in the winter.
Wow.
Had somebody run the shop. I had like 6 employees.
Yeah.
And so it was a good place for me to be. And so what had happened was Hawaii is another great story. I had good stories about Hawaii when I was going there. But what had happened was the state wanted to put a highway through. And so the highway went through, I think it was 33 businesses in Long Branch to connect North End to the south end of Long Branch and run a 6-lane highway just straight down the beach and take away the little single Ocean Avenue.
Okay.
So that put me out there where I was going to lose my livelihood, and they were going, we're going to relocate you. We're going to relocate you. And I'm going, well, how are you going to put me in a spot like right on the beach like this?
I need this beach. Yeah.
You're not going to put me on Broadway, where all the businesses were. It's just like any town. And so I started having an issue with that, and I was sort of like, I knew I was going to relocate. I didn't know where, but I sort of fell back on numbing myself a bit with trying not to worry about it, trying to realize that my dream is being broken up, and nothing was going to be the same.
Yeah.
So when I did relocate, nothing was the same. I went to another spot in West End, which was a beautiful place, but they decided to tear that down and put up the Renaissance condominiums across from Carvel, where you were saying is still there, that huge complex there.
Yeah.
I had a shop right there.
So I would imagine like just trying to get your feet under you at that point, because you're like moving from here to here to here. Like it was hard to like.
And so I wasn't in a spot where you were buying oceanfront property now, because we're moving into the 80s.
Yeah.
And so after 11 years there, the property values escalated. So I was sort of in a spot where I had to downsize and get a spot, and everything I was grabbing it was just being torn down and bought up by, something like what's happening in Pier Village now with the developers. And they're actually eminent domain was coming
crazy
along.
Now. Like it's crazy. It was like Miami Beach. Like I can't handle that town. Like every time I go, I'm like shocked at what's going on.
Oh yeah. You can't even drive through there on the weekend. It's just bumper to bumper.
It's so weird because we had summer, we had all our kids at Monmouth Medical, and like you would always fight for like the one end room because you had ocean view, and it's gone now.
Really?
Yeah, they have a high rise there. So now you can't see the ocean from the hospital anymore.
It's blocking the view.
Yeah. That's
so
sad.
My gosh. Yeah. That's sort of what happened. So with me, I ended up I just was trying to numb myself. I found myself numbing myself, and somewhere along the line, I crossed this line where alcohol becomes a part of your life.
Yeah.
It really does.
It wasn't up until then?
You start thinking about it and thinking about it. And so, you end up getting a DWI, and you realize what happened to yourself, and you shake it off.
Yeah.
And, I really, I'm so glad that I had surfing in my life, because I don't know what would happen if I didn't have that, because that kept me so grounded, in the middle of being in this dark place. Surfing was still, that was just part of my life every day.
So what was the order with, like, I remember you had the shop, and then you said you like bought a route for, was it potato chips?
Lay's,
or
right?
Lay's or one of them?
Did you deliver potato chips or something?
So after that, after I did have a couple of things, I repped some companies.
Yeah.
For, I had Dick Brewer took a stab at clothing businesses, and I'd go to the expo, and I saw where Brewer and Mike Doyle, they needed reps for their companies on the East Coast coming out. And then I had another big company that was distributors for skateboards. So I had a nice little package. I had Victory Wetsuits back then, which was a West Coast company of Victory, and they had some really top pros riding for them back then in that era. So I took on a wetsuit company. I had skateboard companies. I knew all the dealers from up and down the coast.
Yeah.
So for me, it was just, instead of really traveling sometimes, I just picked up the phone. So I found myself on the phone, having a nice liquid lunch, talking to everybody, having a good time, and having an income. And that just put me a little deeper into the dark side.
Yeah.
So that worked for a while, and then I had this thing pop up where, and then I had a thing pop up where I had an opportunity. One of my skateboard guys, he brought a Wise potato chip route, which was a snacks route.
Yeah.
With he had brands like Keebler, the cookies, and I said, well, if you ever decide, he said, I'm going to sell parts of my. He built it up bigger and bigger. He actually sold 2 parts of it and kept 1 part for himself, which was at the time Fort Monmouth. Out to Colts Neck would be the farthest. A nice oceanfront radius that he had. I said, let me know if you ever want to get out of this business. And so he did. A few years later, he was electronics expert. He wanted to get into putting radar into boats and stuff like that. And he had huge contracts. And he says, so I bought his route. And it was great because I would be out. The first thing, I'd get up early in the morning and hit all my stores, hit all my accounts, get new accounts, and be in the water by 1:30 in the afternoon. So it was just like, as far as surfing goes, it couldn't have been a better.
Maintaining like an early wake up as an alcoholic, I feel like that's crazy. But I guess surfing always won. So it was like surfing was the priority.
Yeah, it was. And sometimes it took its toll. Of course it did. Yeah. And then by then I started seeking some help.
Oh, you did?
I had to, because...
How long into it before you said this is a problem?
It was probably a good 10, 15 years.
10 or 15 years.
Yeah.
So what kind of a drunk?
On and off, though. You get hit with a DWI and you
take breaks,
doing this. And then, I found myself in rehab just to please the courts. And then you got the 3rd DWI.
So were you an angry drunk, a happy drunk?
No, I wasn't an angry drunk. I was a good fighter, though. If there was any shit, I was for my size, I was pretty dynamic for some reason. I don't know.
Yeah,
I was.
But I think
wasn't.
Every drunk thinks they're a good fighter.
I think that's but that's true. I think mine came from more of my high school I went to. It was a little mixed and a little tougher high school. So I sort of had my talents for that back then. So I sort of picked up and we were all into Muhammad Ali, and he turned to Cash Clay turned to Muhammad Ali back then. So we had a little
so you had beer muscles,
boxing experience.
I feel like I remember stories of you just being like big gaps where you'd like wake up and there was just missing pieces of the whole night. Like I remember you telling us.
Yeah. You wake up and you had such a good night the night before. We would we'd be down on the boardwalk and or someplace, and then you'd run to the next bar, which because one bar would close at like 1 a.m, and the Asbury Park would stay open till 3 a.m, or you had an extra hour, so you'd run for the next thing to meet up with some of your buddies from there, or or a band or something like that. So then you'd get up in the morning and go, "Where's my car?" And you look out the window and you actually forget where you left your car. So, oh boy,
Jay has a lot of those memories too.
Jay, you have that?
A lot of those, yeah. I was never an alcoholic by any means, but I would definitely do things. I would sleep in my car often.
He was similar, actually. He had a very structured life. Like it would be like he'd wake up at like 6 and like work just so that he could like nap at like 10 o'clock at night and then be ready to party by midnight and then be out until 5 a.m. That was like his. But he was always very like obsessive personality. So if he wanted to stop for 6 months, then he would just stop. Like it was no problem.
Yeah, I was a very responsible partier, whatever that means.
I don't know. Yeah, what that means. But it was funny. Like one of our first nights of like going out as a couple, like when we were together, we went to Jenkinson's.
Oh boy.
And we were out till like 2, and then we're like in the car, and I'm like, well, can you, like, are you going to drive me home? And he was just like, no, we'll just sleep here, like in the car in the parking lot at Jenkinson's.
That makes sense, right, Vince?
I'm not.
That makes sense.
I'm not fucking
Gotta be responsible. I'm not going to drink and drive.
It's like, I'm not sleeping here. And he's like, well.
That seems so weird to me. Like, why not? It's a perfectly comfortable
And he just
car.
like gets the hoodie out, puts it on. Like he's like ready to just curl up and go to bed for the night. And I'm like, I'm not sleeping in this car. Like we'll get a cab. Like there was no Uber, So it's like, we'll figure this out. But I was so freaking mad at him.
Jay's going, come on, we'll watch the sunrise.
Yeah, it'll be great. This is so romantic.
Many a time.
Yeah.
I remember this one night I woke up, I was with my buddies, and I woke up and we were like 3 of us sleeping in the car, and I had my eye was like against the seatbelt thing, and I got one of those things where you get the broken blood vessel, and it was like your white part of your eye turns like blood red.
Oh yeah.
And I had to work like shortly thereafter, and I was like hungover with like blood in my eye and like fun
The
stuff.
stuff that starts to feel so normal.
Oh, I could relate to that completely.
So what was like some of the were there any moments? What were the moments where you're like, holy crap, I need some help? This is
when you first you're starting to face jail for
that's
driving. You just go, oh, I feel sorry for these people who just can't get I see people and go, I'm never going to do that. That's never going to happen to me, or that's never going to happen to me.
Yeah.
And then it happens to you.
Yeah.
And finally, it just shuttered me, where I shuttered my life, and 2 of my friends died right in front of me.
Oh my God.
And I actually gave a eulogy.
Like in a car accident or what?
No, from alcohol.
Alcohol poisoning?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And I was like,
and you were still drinking and saw that happen.
And yeah, the 3 of us were, we see each other at the bars. And so one was a gemologist. He worked a professional job. These were they picked went to college for gems, and he passed away, and I gave his eulogy. Me and another friend, Smitty, went to it, and I was actually had a few drinks before I gave the eulogy.
Oh my God.
Like, that's how insane it was. And then he was a union worker, a steel worker, iron worker. And I remember he used to leave in the morning with a 6-pack of Heinekens. He was always ready the night before just to go to work with that and carry on and just build high rises. So that was sort of it was just an unchecked thing back then. And there was a lot of partying going on. I mean, and Monmouth Park Racetrack was there, and the jockeys were always, back then in the early days, when cocaine came in and all of that. So you'd fuel one thing with another.
Yeah.
And
I was going to ask, I don't remember hearing if you were ever into drugs too, or if it was just alcohol.
Of course, that was all in there.
You say, of course. That wasn't an of course for me. But yeah.
Of course, I was blowing lines. Yeah,
the nightlife and everything like that. It was always it was just a fun thing. It was a lot of a lot of good memories. But then it gets it takes over.
Yeah.
And so,
and I remember you saying, like, because now a lot of these same guys you grew up with, you're all in AA together. So you kind of move through, and you're like, really, we all kind of know if you're not in AA, you didn't make it, kind of thing. Like, it was like you guys all kind of came out together and got sober.
A couple of my friends, one was a professional, he opened up a painting business, became very, very, very good at that, contracting. And then another friend of mine, he was a lawyer, just about to be disbarred. And he became a judge all of a sudden. He sobered up and became a judge. And I'm watching this happen. I'm watching friends die and watching friends progress.
Yeah.
And it just changed. A new chapter had it. I was either I'm going to hit the wall, or it's going to change. And so I had a really great older guy, John Farrell, who he sort of like mentored me through that part of my life where I needed something to grab onto. And I was being without a family here and being so independent, I thought I knew everything, and I was going to attack this and fix it myself.
Yeah.
But there was no way I could fix it myself.
Yeah.
So he guided me through and met a whole new different class of people, and the guys who I used to drink with, they went on to be successes. And so and now I'm in a spot where I'm helping people. They'll come up to me in the water and just say, "Listen, I think I'm crossing the line here a little bit."
Yeah.
And my wife's ready to kick me out.
Yeah.
And and I said, "Listen, this is what you got to do. It's really, as long as you want to do it. You can't do it for your wife. You can't do it for your neighbors, or you got to do it for yourself."
Which of the 12 steps would you say changed you or impacted you the most, and which ones were the hardest?
I think, well, the one that influences most is the first step, where you have to realize you're powerless and your life has become unmanageable.
Yeah.
That's the first step. And once you can get your head around that, I couldn't picture myself not drinking for the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
It's just impossible. If I was going to,
You
go,
just thought you were going to get it under control.
yeah, if you go to a hockey game, you go to a baseball game.
Like how can you enjoy yourself
It's
without?
a part of life
How
in
could
every
you
aspect.
possibly go, I'll get it under control and then get back to normal drinking, or normal socialized, being like a normal human being.
Like how
Yeah.
can you be fun or
How could
laugh?
how could you not have something in your hand while you're socializing, and just the way we were augmented growing up. And so and then so it's the first step, and then I guess the 10th step is just to realize during the course of your day how your day went, why you got mad at something, and looking back on it and to correct it as fast as you can. Like if I had an argument with somebody, and not to hold resentments. The 10th step is about looking at your day. If you think about it in the morning or at night, what could you have changed to make yourself better? Or, cursing at somebody in the parking lot, or driving, or could be just you didn't like the way somebody was painting your house, or it could be anything, that would aggravate somebody, or
Just everything that you used to have to numb. Now you have to figure out how to.
Yeah,
cope
you have to
outside of
come
that.
out of your whole character defects, lose your defects. And, you walk into the forest for 20 miles, you got to walk out 20 miles. And to get rid of all those defects of character, you have to learn how to live again. So, to this day, I'm constantly learning something. Something goes off my brain and says, wait before you talk, and next month I'll have 15 years.
Wow, no kidding. So we met you right around when you
Got sober.
Got
Yeah,
sober?
I didn't
Oh, I
realize
think
that.
so.
A
which
couple
makes
years
me
later,
feel
maybe.
which makes me feel terrible, because I remember when we first met, you used to come to some of our house parties. It was probably a lot of stuff in your face. I had no idea.
Yeah, probably so.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Probably so. It was great times. I mean, it was nothing about having fun that we didn't have. I mean, it wasn't good about it.
So Elaine must have come into your life when you were still drinking? Was she
Yes.
still
Oh,
around?
yeah.
Okay.
By far.
Okay.
Yep. And so she was still working up north a little bit, so she'd be coming down on the weekends. So
she didn't know what was going on in
she
between.
really didn't see the whole how it grabbed me, and
Yeah.
where it finally turns out to where you got up in the morning and you start thinking about it instead of having breakfast. You start thinking about what your body's starting to talk to you about having some alcohol.
Was there a part of you that was like, oh, I met this great woman, and Elaine, and then you're like, I don't know if I could be that fun guy that she fell in love with if I stopped drinking?
I see that happen to a lot of people. You see when people do, I've seen it in that when people change and they get sober, they're a different person, and the person they're with doesn't like that person.
Yeah.
It's like
So
they want
that-
them to be healthy, but they don't want them
Yeah,
to be
you're
boring.
just
and
yeah. So I've seen it could go any different road when it comes to that.
Yeah.
So
I'm not an alcoholic at all, but I see that, because I pretty much gave up. I don't really drink hardly at all, and I don't really smoke very much at all. I'm like, I still have fun, still party occasionally, but I definitely not like how when I first met you, I was like going
He'll
off
have like
the
a quarter a
rails.
glass of wine, and like the
I'll
next
feel
day
it,
he'll be
yeah.
mad about it. Yeah, so it's not.
But like I found like
No,
for me, even though I wasn't an alcoholic, I have seen where it's like a lot of my buddies that I built relationships up with, they might still have partying or drinking or smoking tons as a huge part of like the things we had in common. And there's like a point at which you're like, okay, well, who am I, and why do these people want to hang out with me, or vice versa, when so much of me has changed? I would imagine for you that must, especially being in like a very ego-based surf community, that must have been really hard.
yeah, it is, because you have your friends, you have basically what you're doing, and you sort of change. You have to change it up. And so I found with since I was so independent, I could go at this thing as hard as I could going with it. And so I actually had a person I invited to my wedding. He says, I can't come to your wedding. I said, why not? He goes, because you'll have an open bar and be drinking there. And he was actually frightened to come to my wedding.
Yeah, I get
And
that.
people are, they don't need
Were you
a
sober
trigger.
by the time you got married?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, Elaine wouldn't marry me unless I was a year sober.
Okay.
Oh, good for her.
So we got married 15 years ago.
Okay.
Wow.
That's awesome.
So yeah, and I couldn't do it for her. I had to do it for myself, and she just couldn't wrap her head around what the hell I was doing.
Had you been married or engaged before, Elaine?
No.
Nope.
No, that was the
Because
first.
surfing was your first love.
Yeah, it was. And then I had my shop and my teams, and so I had kids all the time. I had kids, families, and so I was constantly. It was great. It was great.
You had the family you needed at the time.
Yeah, I had everything that I needed.
Did you picture yourself having kids, or you kind of knew that wasn't for you?
I guess I didn't, since the team thing, the whole settling down thing didn't really hit me, because next thing I knew, I was going from my 20s into my 30s in business, and I wasn't really settled down yet with the whole home structure, and so it just happened. It
Goes
just
by fast.
It went by fast.
Yeah.
It really did.
Yeah.
Here we are
Yeah.
on my birthday.
Yeah.
I feel like there's some truth to the fact that, like, it seems like people that don't have kids, like, have an easier time of just kind of maintaining that, like, flow of, like, you're probably I would imagine, very similar to how you were when you were younger. Like, you're still, like, for the record, you're still winning surf contests, like, a lot. Like, you still seem like, you're that version of Vince minus the alcohol. Like, every season where, for instance, we have this, like, contest, the Manasquan Classic, where it's like 1967 boards. Is that it? Right?
Yeah.
So that's like the heyday of your
pre-67
surfing. It's like repeated every fall, like 1967 boards and earlier, no leashes and, like, no rules. And you almost always win it. You're still very active in the surf scene. You're traveling, and it's interesting. I feel like by not having kids, it almost helps you maintain, like, that childhood sense of who you are almost. Does that make sense?
think so. And it's and the one thing that is nice about it, that I do feel like I might have missed a chapter in my life not doing that and having children. But my wife, Elaine, she was a teacher. So
you guys were just around kids everywhere.
She had 350 kids a day.
Yeah.
And she'd come home and she was like, just wow. And go back at it the next day. And so now what's really gratifying is seeing my friends with families like yourself, who are just so hip compared to my parents.
Oh man, I don't feel hip. Thank you.
But I mean, your kids have skateboards. I mean, we had to build our skateboards. Your kids have skateboards. So we had to cut roller skates in half back then and nail them to a piece of wood until we laminated some up. And but the parents are so fantastic now. When you do go to these contests and stuff, it's a family affair pretty much, because all the kids are in their age groups and coming up, and when I meet the families now, it's like, Vince sold me my first surfboard, and they're going and they're looking up at me going like, he sold you your first surfboard, and then they go at the same time, this is the guy who's going to teach you how to surf. And because of that, that's why I do now. I do surf lessons all the time.
I know we're counting on you this summer. We're going to come down there with Summer for sure.
Oh, that'd be great.
I know. I think she'd listen to someone else better, which I'm sure is always the case with kids. You feel like they listen to a teacher better than they listen to
it
their
seems
parent.
to be a proven thing, because even guys, they'll go, my wife just doesn't listen to me. Right. But they don't have the patience. That's right.
Well, it's funny. You would like send me like 2 or 3 tips, like as I'm going by you, and you'd be like, do this, do that. And you're so gentle with it. And Jay would be like, I've told you that 15 times. It's Vince. I'll listen to him. But that's actually the first place I met you, was at the shop in
Spellbinders.
At Spellbinders. And I just remember how, well, it was like a bait. Jay's like, you have to meet Vince. You'd known him, I guess, from shopping there.
Yeah, so I had to actually met you at Spellbinders through my friend Jeff Smith, who was he's my high school buddy. That was one of the guys that taught me how to surf. Like, Jeff had a half pipe in his backyard. We grew up in Howell, in like the suburbs, about 15 minutes or so away from the beach. And like, Jeff was one of my skating and surfing buddies. And at some point, he introduced me to you at the surf shop. And that was right around right before my painting career did anything. And I remember this one conversation we had. You're like, "Oh, you got to check out this guy, Rob Havasey," and Rob had one of his calendars or something there.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I think shortly thereafter, Rob and I had gotten in touch. So yeah, you were right there before.
But you were always it was funny because you were so unassuming. You always be wandering around the shop, like helping whoever. But you were like, without being salesy, you were the guy because everyone was just trusted you. You had so much knowledge. It was like, okay, I'm 5'3". What should I do? I'm just starting, and you'd just be like, this is what you're gonna get. And you'd be like, I'll give you all my money. What do you need?
Yeah. I would never make the sale unless I knew it was gonna actually help them progress.
Yeah.
A lot of people make the sale.
Yes.
It's just they'll say, well, I could sell a $16,000 sports car, but what the guy really needs is, he needs a 4-door sedan because he's got a family, and it's, instead of, so I did know what it would take for a person to progress.
Yeah, which is why people would keep coming back to you over and over again,
instead of just making the sale.
Yeah.
I want to know about some heavier moments of surfing. Are there moments where were just way too close calls, or you like almost killed yourself, or just scary moments, like people listening that either don't surf or they do surf and they're just like, can you give them a picture of like some heavier moments that you were out where you just maybe scared the crap out of yourself?
I guess, well, if there's raw power, I guess it would be on the North Shore of Hawaii. And that'll definitely put you in your place. But I've known about it, I know of it, and I just I when I went there, I lived across the street from Sunset Beach, so that wave alone could you can meet your maker on that very easy. So I had a couple times there that was huge, and just coming from the East Coast, you had to get acclimated, and it's just I put in the time, so luckily.
You were living at Sunset Beach?
And so, right across the street.
Before or after California?
That was after California, because I started the Islanders. And
so you were there with Mark Richards era?
Yeah, Mark Richards, Sean Thompson.
Oh, my God.
That was just such a good time to get, because the Australians were fighting it out with the Hawaiians, and it was such a...
Did you know those guys fairly well?
Yeah, well, I got to know them. Okay. I remember I was hitchhiking once, and Mark Richards picked me up hitchhiking. I was going from Haleiwa to Sunset, and he picked me up in his car. It was just stuff like that was happening all the time. And I actually knew Bernie Baker, who was a lead photographer from the surfer magazines and stuff like that, who's lived right at Sunset Beach. And just being there, people would come into his driveway, whether it would be Buttons or Mark Richards, the Australians, and so he would. I actually had a key to his house where he would let me look through all his slides, and he said, "These are my B slides." He said, "If there's anything there you wanna take," and it was like I'd sit there and I'd just go through his slides, which were like, for me, like covers to magazines. And he had, I got to bring home these slides from just all over the world that he was, he'd be gone for a few days, and I just go in there in his house and just sort of, caretake for his house, make sure, whatever, I was across the street. And I'd come home with these slides, and I'd have slideshows at my house and invite the teams over just to see these guys, just incredible shots.
What I don't get, though, is so much of your life, including during your alcoholism heyday, was like focused on surfing first. Everything, right, was surfing first.
Yeah.
Even before having a family or not, everything was like surfing. And yet you settled down in Jersey.
Yeah.
You lived in North Shore. You lived in like Newport. You lived in all these like surf meccas.
Uh-huh.
Why did you not move there?
Well, I don't...
Why did you stay here?
It's just like I watched your transition go on a little bit when you moved to Florida.
Yeah.
And I watched how you handled that. And you went there. You full on had the whole art thing. You got married there.
Yeah.
And we went to visit you there,
yeah.
To see, because it was an artsy town and everything like that. But you ended up picking up and coming back here again. And I know in your case, a lot was to do with family.
Yeah. Totally. It was probably all family.
All family, but I guess somehow you landed back here.
You know what, for us
right?
it was family for sure, but Sandy really did it for us because it was weird, like
Superstorm Sandy.
Superstorm Sandy.
Sandy from Greece.
Yeah, not just our friend Sandy.
Hurricane.
Yeah, because we just stood in our living room watching the footage for hours, and we felt so helpless. And it was like we should be there. Like we felt this pull to be like with our community, and we didn't realize how strong our community was until we were like outside of it, like looking. I remember just like stalking footage, and it'd be like, John Stewart was walking around helping. You know, like Bruce was back. Like everyone was there.
Yeah.
And it was like all these people that loved our home, and we were stuck in Jacksonville. Like it felt very strange to be like outside of it.
Oh, wow.
But I feel like so much of it was really moving back was family. We were pregnant with Summer, and our
well, that was like the straw that broke the camel's back.
Siblings,
it was like, now I'm pregnant.
But in Vince's case, like at some point, you know, your dad was gone. Like you didn't have kids in the picture. You were surfing competitively. It would seem, talking to you, that like, of course, you would just settle down in the North Shore or somewhere, and
you're like, what'd you have to lose? You know, like it would be great.
No, I guess it was the community factor, and being in this area, you're really close to a lot of things that are going on. Ever since we were young, we had the Fillmore East, which was right over the bridge to go in New York, and every weekend they would have, you know, Jackson Browne would be playing. Doobie Brothers. I mean, you would have the ocean is here.
Yeah.
You have waves, and you have the city not far away at the same time. So, just the best of all the cultures seem to be right here, and a lot of talent. There's just raw talent that was in Jersey. I just think the people from this area have a lot more. They take advantage of life a little bit more because a lot of people are seasonal, and you have to really dig in to if you want to go away in the winter and get to the tropics or get to your dream place.
You're gonna hustle.
You're gonna have to hustle. And
so, of these guys that we see you with, like at the longboard competition, a lot of the guys you're still like meeting for coffee and all that. Is that community people that you've known since back in?
Yeah, and it's just that you've been networking with since you were kids, and that have stayed into it. So they're in the same premise that we're on with the ocean. So
that must be so cool.
Everybody's
like, I know Cecil's still super involved, and like Reno and Larry Bertelman were just here a couple of years back.
Yeah, Mark Lidell.
So like a lot of the cooler people that, like when I first got into like my surf art career, I remember having so many moments where you would just like call me up and be like, hey, Jay, we're doing dinner with Robert August and Wingnut. Why don't you come by? And I'm like, of course. Or like, you're like, hey, Jay, I'm at the surf shop and Mark Richards is doing a signing. Come by. And I'm like, of course. You know, like you're always like in touch. And I got to have dinner with these cool people and meet some of these legends.
Jersey has carved itself out as a good place to visit. Anyway,
and you ended up teaching surf lessons to Bruce Springsteen's son, yeah?
Oh, yeah. What happened with him was he turned out to be a little gamer. You know how the kids like get online and they play, and he'd be playing like till 3 a.m. and, not wanting to wake up till 12, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And they just said, we can't have this. They said,
I can imagine being Bruce Springsteen. Like, I'm Bruce Springsteen, and you're my son. You're playing video games all day. Like, really? Like,
like, really? Are you
really, dude?
So it happens easily in this generation. So the gamers are making a lot of money at it now if you're good, right?
Yeah.
So maybe you get that path in the road. But they just Rick, who was pretty much took care of the kids since Bruce would be on the road. He said, I know who could take care of this. Vince could take care of this. So he'd bring him down, by he wasn't driving yet, so he'd bring Bruce's son down to Sammy, and he really took to surfing.
Yeah.
He really was it was so much fun teaching him, and he took to it. And even when he would go maybe to Spain with his dad, and they were doing shows there, he'd go surfing there. And
does Bruce surf?
And
he does.
Oh yeah,
he's still surfing.
Okay. Yeah, matter of fact, we're having every 2 years we bring in 12 new people into the Jersey Hall of Fame. And so, matter of fact, Friday night we're going to induct 12 new people that deserve to be in. And we want to give an award to Bruce, an honorary Hall of Fame award, because he surfed and
helped the community, I'm sure. Yeah.
A few years back, I was in the water with him and got him back up again and, you know, and stuff. So
that's one guy you haven't called me about yet.
And
wait
he's
for that
so
call.
stealth though, like he just appears and then
he's
I remember
different world.
Some years back, either you or someone told me like, oh yeah, we saw Vince talking to Bruce at the Lock Harbor Jetty or something. I'm like, yeah, it sounds about right.
Yeah. It was so, you just never know. And he'd bring his mom down and you know, stuff like that, and just get her in the water. And it was just things would just happen, I guess. Put it that way. You never know what's going to happen.
So with that, all these new like North Beach issues at Asbury, are you still going to be able to teach where you teach, or have you moved?
Yeah, no, I'm fine right there.
Okay.
It's just on the borderline there.
Okay.
So, and Asbury has a surfing beach over there now, which is nice. And they
do
do have a surf.
The dog beach? Is that where they're surfing?
Yeah,
Okay.
and they actually have a surf camp there too.
Oh right,
which is good for the younger guys.
Yeah.
I just do the private lessons, but they have the camp where you could actually drop your kids off there for, you know, a good part of the day. And
that's awesome.
Let them, you know, that's a nice thing too.
Awesome. Yes, if you guys ever want to sign up for Vince, let us know. We'll hook you up. He's always out there.
So yeah, it's a good time.
Is Elaine still teaching at all or no?
Yeah, she helps me out.
Cool.
I have the little younger ones. You know, she's
got to get out to the beach with the kids.
No, I know.
I miss
this year's for
I miss
summer.
surfing
for sure.
there. It's a great spot.
Summer needs to surf. Well, she's finally a very strong swimmer. Like we did a wave pool. We like went and did like a stay at one of those places that has like the wave, like the little kid wave
waves,
pools.
yeah.
And she was like
was
jumping
loving
over,
it.
going under, jumping out. Like she's really confident now. So I feel better
that's
seeing
it.
her moving it well. So, and that beach, is it still, with all the changes, like is it still really long and shallow? Like is it pretty easy to get out there?
Yeah, there's been changes. Last summer was not very good there.
Okay.
There was too much northeast to gouge it out a little bit, and so it didn't make that nice even wave that you could just
I
at
love
low
that
tide
wave so
send
much.
them in. So I moved it over a little bit into deal a little bit more, where the sandbar was good over there.
Okay.
Yeah, and so not far, but just right in the realm there where we could, you know, be local. And really, I don't have to drive. I just walk down the beach and walk
it's
to
like such
them.
a great setup.
So I'm lucky enough to live that close to the ocean, where I just, you know, could see it from my window, and I could tell them the wind shifted. We're not going to surf today, and we're going to, you know, I want them to have a good lesson. That's the main thing.
I want to expose your surfing secrets now. What is your superpower? Because you're beating guys legitimately 50 years younger than you. You're better than a lot of the younger guys.
You seem to become like a part of a wave. Like it's a really wild thing.
Yeah, I mean,
to
you
watch.
still have your mobility, like better than guys my age. You're more flexible then. But like, what is it about? Not to sound hokey, but what is like your secret? Like, is there a mindset, or is there an internal dialogue? Especially with doing like the 12 steps, I'd imagine you're much more conscious of your thoughts. So what might your internal dialogue look like that someone that's not as, you know, fluent with surfing, how might you be approaching the wave or thinking about fear or any of those obstacles that really affect someone surfing? How do you think you approach it differently?
I guess it's that I just never really backed off. I just sort of kept just the magnetism of the sport for me was just, it was there, and I never seemed to have lost that. You know, like a lot of people I know now quit in the winter because it's just too cold, and they don't want to. But you know, they make the wetsuits so good now. You can stay out there until you get tired, and if you get tired, you come in if the waves are good. So that's not an obstacle really if you want to surf. So, you know, I'll break up the winter. I'll definitely go away and go to Mexico, Costa Rica, and Puerto Rico is only 4 hours away, and you could surf on a reef. And I mean, it's.
But back to the secrets.
But
I really
back to.
But so, like, if you're next to a guy in a contest or just in the lineup, and what's like some common things that you're like, oh man, if this guy just did this or looked at things in a different way, like, are there things that commonly keep coming up?
I never really dissected it like that. I just seem to. It seems like a normal thing just to be doing what you're doing. I remember You know how you guys love to do yoga
Yeah.
and stuff in Chelsea? You used to do that hot yoga and stuff like that. And that's really a good thing to do.
Yeah.
And so I remember one time when I started doing, I said, I'll do my own yoga and play with it and be flexible. And I remember one time I wanted to sit on the floor and I went to touch my forehead to my knees. And I was about a foot away. Yeah. And so after about a year, I realized that I could touch my knees now just by a little bit, not hurting myself, but just by keeping that flexibility that I could, keep my muscles instead of shrinking up to be flexible enough to do stuff and to keep the strength. And if, say I wouldn't get out in the water for a couple of weeks, I'd use some weights for paddling and just use, just,
I mean,
it might not seem like anything. Yeah, just to make sure you're staying tuned, I would imagine, instead of getting beat downs, when the water's cold and it's 4 or 5 foot.
So do you think it's just like that repetition? It's now all instinct. You've just like done it so much that now it's just in your bones to know exactly what turns to make and how to read the ocean. And it's just a part of you now.
And I wouldn't want to fall behind sort of in that way.
But you are teaching, so you have to be able to dissect it to some extent. Like when you're teaching students, what are like the common 3 things, let's say, that people are just not doing right?
I guess the one thing I try to tell them is, you're dealing with, it's like skateboarding, you're surfing on you're skateboarding on the street, you have a tangible thing that you're on. When in the ocean, everything's moving. So I try to tell them that, when I'll give you the speed, you have to match the speed of the wave. Because and paddling into a wave is, once they can get that pop-up, that initial pop-up, if they can get that paddling speed, reach the speed of the wave, and get to their feet, because we're just on a sandbar. We don't have a long wave that you could really practice your Waikiki style type of thing. Which is what a great way to learn. Go to Waikiki.
That's how it wasn't in Florida for us. Sure. Like, I just feel like we had these really long waves that you could actually
almost
play.
never barreled.
Yeah, so you just get up every time.
Yeah, it's just so you get end up and it's not going to jack up on you, and so. You got to be a little quicker, and I try to teach them, when the wave's going to hit the sandbar, you're going to have to move a little faster and get that foot down. And I'll work on the sand with people before I ever take them out. That's a big tip.
Yeah.
Work on the beach with them first, because once you're out there with them and you're telling them where to place their feet, it's way too late. You're beyond that.
Yeah. And you have to make sure their coordination is
so
what it needs to do.
And I want to see them get up, put their feet right in the right spot, right in the right spot. And you'll see in the beginning, they won't be doing it. They'll be parallel. They'll be off to the side. And so we just don't have being such a short ride. You got to do as much as you can, as fast as you can. And so that's the main thing.
Yeah. Are you doing any breath training at all?
And no, I think just paddling is no, I don't do anything. Do you do that?
No, but I bought one of those devices, like the breathing things. I was talking to Dean Randazzo like a few years back, and I was like, I really can't seem to like keep my breath long enough to like progress my surfing on the bigger days. I would just always get out of breath, and he told me to buy this like device that you like breathe through, that you can kind of constrict the air coming in and out. And I did it sometimes when I was like on my computer, and then after a while it just got really annoying, so I stopped. But
that's a lung exercise, so to speak. Increase. Well, and then I'll during the course of the winter, I'll use some indoor pools too. Yeah, and do some swimming and underwater swimming.
Yeah, just to stay strong.
So that, like
I feel like with you watching you, like it's just like it's nice to say that there's like all these tips and like all these things, but with you, it's just you've gotten your 1,000 hours of doing something, and now you just do it, right? It's just like in your bones.
Yeah.
So are there any pieces of advice or wisdom that has come from surfing that might be more broadly applicable for people in general?
There's that saying I've heard, or I saw it online or somewhere, but it culminates the whole thing. It's like when you get old, you quit surfing, but when you quit surfing, you get old.
I love that. That's great.
And I think that's a big part of it. When I read that, I was just like, oh.
Do you think fear is related to that?
And so Oh, partially.
I think a lot of people probably quit surfing because of fear, because as you get older, maybe more mortality thoughts come in, or your bones don't
want to hurt themselves.
Yeah, they don't want to hurt themselves or take risks. Or,
yeah, so I mean, you got to know your limits. I mean, you want to keep pushing, taking off late takeoffs in front of rocks.
Yeah.
And, do stuff like that.
Right. You gotta, unnecessary risks.
Yeah, or pace yourself if you're getting into that predicament, of things. But yeah, I'd just say know your limits. That's really what it is as you're getting older, not to push too hard. And
push your limits too, though. It's like a fine balance, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's a fine balance.
Push it, but not too much.
And push it, but just, know your body. Know
Which,
yourself.
coming from an alcoholic, is probably hard.
Oh, yeah, well. yeah, it's a good thing to know your limits, know your boundaries, and know where you can improve. You can improve all the time, too.
Right.
So that's another thing. Yeah.
So we always ask one last question, and we really didn't touch upon like your very young childhood much. So, but I'm going to ask, if I ask you to step right back into your childhood kitchen, so that kitchen when you were a little kid, what's the first thing you think of?
Oh, boy, I remember, and it just sticks out in my mind. I would come home from surfing. We'd be surfing for hours and hours, and you skip lunch and you just go home to you'd be starved.
Yeah.
And so you get home, and I remember not even taking off my wetsuit, just going into the kitchen and sitting down. And I remember my mother making these stuffed cabbages that were just incredible with like a sauce on them.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget how good that tasted back then.
Were you Polish?
My father was.
Okay, because I'm half Polish. That's definitely a big thing for my childhood too.
For the record, I have nailed vegan stuffed cabbage, and his dad is like, every time, this tastes like real food. It's like so shocked.
It's
like,
vegan.
Yeah. He's like Nan would be proud. And it's like the biggest achievement of my life. Like, I did it.
Oh my gosh.
But it is funny to have like the only one in the family that I'm like very not Polish, and I have none of that history, and I'm vegan, and I'm the one that makes our like Hanukkah dinner, and we do like the stuffed cabbage, but it is really good. It's very good.
Yeah, that sticks in my mind, just going in the kitchen. And I think my sister even took a picture of me with my wetsuit on, me sitting there and not even taking my wetsuit off, just sitting right down to have something to eat. I didn't even take the time.
That's awesome.
But that sticks in my mind.
You are amazing. I feel like we could really go on for another 2 hours.
I do have one more story.
Yeah,
quick story.
I want to hear it.
I'll never forget that I was in gym class in school, in high school, and we were surfing and we're completely into it. And after school, we'd run right down to the beach because we never knew what the weather was going to be. We'd never know when the waves were coming, never, or what the wind was doing. And so I was in my gym class, and my gym teacher wanted us to run a mile. And so I ran that mile in like some incredibly fast mile because I was in shape from surfing, and he wanted to put me on the track team. And I said, "Oh, sorry, Mr. May." And I said, I surf after school. I go down there. And he said, "No, you got to be on the track team." I'm sorry. I'm not going to take a no for an answer. So anyway, the moral of the story is I got all A's the whole time I was in high school in phys ed, of course. And then the one time I wouldn't go on his team, he failed me.
No way.
He failed me big F, the first F I ever got in phys ed class because I wouldn't join the track
because you were too good of a runner, so he got mad.
Yeah, so he got mad at me, and so
awesome.
Surfing took priority there.
There you go.
I feel like we could make a really cool laundry list of all the things that surfing beat out in your life. Like, I could have done this, but I wanted to surf.
I could have done this.
Yeah, I wanted to surf.
Yeah.
Oh, so good. Thank you so much, Vince.
I'm so glad we finally got some of your story recorded.
Yeah.
It's been years of like dinner conversations and wanting to do this. So thank you for making this happen.
And this is just I'm really glad I did it. And
Miss your
it's
face.
So great seeing you guys,
Yeah.
and I'm always in touch, seeing your Facebook pictures with the kids and all that stuff. It's just
we'll be down
you
there this
guys
summer,
are
though, for
unbelievable.
sure.
You're an inspiration to like so many of us. I mean, just you're just such a positive influence, and especially seeing someone who just turned 69 today. Happy birthday! That you are like in better shape and surfing better than most people that I know that are in their 30s.
Yeah.
That's like really awesome to see. Like you can still rip and keep it going and kind of maintain your youthful like outlook on life, and you manage to come out of that darkness of alcoholism, and you're mentoring people, and it's just such a great legacy that you've created already.
Thank you.
Happy to have you as like a quasi part of our family.
Oh, it is wonderful. I couldn't be happier, I have to say. And I did want to say before we got off, support your local surf rider. People like them, just incredible what they're doing. You know, what we got to pass on to our kids. You of all people, surf rider with John Weber's in Belmar and their organization, SEA, which is Surfers Environmental. With Richie Lee. He does an amazing job with autism and the kids, that Belmar Festival that he has, and they give thousands of dollars for their foundation.
I mean, monitor for beach
have
cleanups.
some $50,000 checks going to him through SEA, and they have
great.
the paddle around New York, which he does, raising money, and then of course Clean Ocean Action. Right now, I'd like to let it be known that by the 31st of May, today's the 28th, they have to shoot down a pipeline coming across the Raritan River from New York, coming over to Jersey, and having a plant there with a 23-mile pipeline that they're going to dig up the Raritan Bay floor and bring it over to us, and it's just going to create so much harm to the shellfish and everything like that. And Clean Ocean Action is working on that right now to get governor to stop it. The governor of New York said no, so our governor has to be heard. You know, he has to put the word out there for people to pay attention to what they're trying to stop. And then another friend of mine, I just want to say, is got a wonderful. He's working on a surf movie. His name is Jeff Salmon, and it's going to be.
Hey, Jeff.
Hi, Jeff.
Yeah, Jeff.
Got
another
kids too.
Fellow
another
twin
guy with
dad.
another guy with twins.
Yeah.
And he's got this documentary for New Jersey he's putting out.
He's been making that for like 7 years.
But I guess, as you know, when you run into
things
twins,
take a while. Yes.
But he has stockpiled interviews of East and West Coast about people with Jersey who have left and come back, and he's got Bruce on there talking about surfing and the whole band, and his documentary is going to be fantastic, and he needs some help. If there's anybody out there that can help him edit and go his way with the movie's going to be named Live to See, SEA.
Okay.
And so, I just want to give a shout out to those guys because they're constantly behind the scenes, always doing something to improve the ocean and
just like more proof of that, like how much of this all comes out of New Jersey. I love it. So many great people doing good things.
Yeah, there are.
Yeah.
And Bobby Dewar out of Manasquan doing Just Leave Your Footprints on the Beach. Another great campaign that,
What's up, Bob?
Hi, Bob.
Yeah,
we love the Dewar family.
Love that. Just don't leave anything behind.
Yeah.
Pick up, make the beach a better place.
Awesome.
And get rid of beach badges. Let's put that in there. That's such BS, isn't it? Oh, man.
Get rid of beach badges for tax paying New Jerseyans, I think. But all right, we'll move on.
Chelsea has to go and get the kiddos.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
How are you feeling?
I'm good. I'm recovering from 4th of July. Yeah, which is funny because we didn't really drink, just life and beach and sun.
Parenthood.
Yeah, which was awesome, by the way.
Got my first little boogie board session in with Summer.
Yeah, which is amazing. And Judah finally took his floaties off in the ocean.
Yeah.
Still wearing goggles.
Of course. That was probably one of my favorite things, was because you didn't ask me what my favorite thing was,
what was your
yesterday.
favorite thing yesterday? Huh?
I asked you.
Yeah.
And your favorite thing was playing with our friends' kids.
Yeah, well, I realized we had our first hang sesh where I actually wasn't completely all consumed by our own children because they were hanging with the big kids. And I got to hang out with all the little toddlers and babies.
Somehow they're at the age where they can just play and we're not like hovering over, making sure they're okay.
Yeah, there's no more like helicopter parenting in that sense, which is nice. What was your favorite thing, Jay?
That's my helicopter sound. I loved catching waves with Summer. That was just amazing. She was so stoked, and she was just like, more. I was like, how many more? And she was like, I don't know. She said like 460,000 or something, some made up number. But it was just awesome seeing how stoked she was. And then I like pushed her into one, and she kind of like rolled around a little bit, and I was worried, but she was great, and that was just a magic moment.
Yeah, she's getting really good at swimming. Well, you got to boogie board.
Yes. Yeah.
Skateboard.
Somehow boogie boarding is now a cool thing.
Yeah. And then skateboard.
Yeah. I got to skateboard a little bit with Mike.
With an ex-pro skater.
Mike Washnak. Shout. What?
And then you got to stand up paddle.
Yeah.
Not a terrible day.
That was a great 4th of July. And now I have to pay $1,000 to get my car fixed. That's been kind of stressing me out.
I know the birthmobile is under operation right now.
God.
Jay's poor man car has turned into my birthmobile, and our minivan is his, cart the kids around.
I love that minivan. I wish they were our sponsor. I'd love to tell you guys about it, but I'm not going to.
Right? And I'm going to tell you what kind we have until someone sponsors us.
So Vince Troniec.
Oh, he's such a legend.
I love Vince.
I was trying to think for the intro, who are there was like some crazy stories he's told us in the past about just like famous people he just tripped and fell upon. And he was just like,
so many.
And then I also realized like, him and like Ben Sproul have that, like Ben Sproul will be Vince Troniec when he's like Vince's age.
He's building up the repertoire of stories
of all these amazing crazy stories.
I was hoping to get more out of Vince, like the whole like 60s flower power thing. I'm sure there's way more than what he told us.
Yes, well we know that there is. He's given us a couple little tidbits,
little tastes, but still it was with like his wife around. I want to get Vince alone
his chaos
with a glass of water at a bar since he doesn't drink. Be like, dude, tell me about all these like naked body painted girls doing hula hoops in the 60s.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure there's lots of that.
So much of it.
Because in my head, that's all there was.
I know. That's what you wish there was now, but
Yeah. I'm married to you and stuff.
Yeah. But yeah, no, he's amazing. I mean, I just feel like Vince has been such a cool part of our lives. Like he's been there for all the good stuff. And
yeah.
As always, like we got married and he came, and then like we heard about how cool our wedding was from him for like ever, and like he's always so amazing.
Our wedding was awesome.
I mean, our wedding was awesome.
Yeah, life was simple then.
Life is simple now.
Different ways.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, anyway, if for any of you that are listening to this that have gotten this far in the episode, we're sorry for being so lame the past month. We've been like bombarded with work and parenthood stuff and summertime stuff and our kids yelling in the background right now.
Yeah.
And we've had to kind of deprioritize being as strict with our schedule. So
we have some really cool podcasts coming up,
we
though.
do.
So stay tuned. We're just trying to loop them in with some other little quick candy treats for you in between. About
sugar-free, organic, GMO-free.
GMO
candy
free,
treat.
yeah.
GMO.
Okay. Non-GMO.
Non-GMO.
That's weird. GMO free sounds strange.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing as non-GMO.
Yeah, why is that?
I don't know.
Non-GMO.
Non-GMO free would not work.
No.
GMO
It's a double
free.
negative.
Right. Anyway.
Good stuff coming up. We're still here.
I hope you're loving your summer, driving a lot and listening to podcasts. So
Except for those in you in the southern hemisphere who are enjoying your winter.
Yes.
I hope you guys are not too cold. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. We hope you loved that episode. If you did love it and could give us some love on iTunes, that would be amazing. You can leave a review and we will give you a shout out at some point on this podcast.
Also, if you guys can follow us on social media, we would love to hear from you. We are on pretty much every social media platform at Shifting Perceptions Podcast, which is the same as our website, shiftingperceptionspodcast.com. We look and reply to all comments, so please share with your friends, tag us. We appreciate all the love.
And don't forget that all of our guests also see all these comments, so I'm sure if you want to just have a space you can reach out, these are the places to do it. We also want to give some love to our amazing photographer that has done all of our photos so far,
Kevin Rigby.
His website is wavelightstudio.com.
And also our really good friend John Harvey, who did the music for our podcast. You can find him at Instagram at Harvey Wallbanger. So that's our little rolling credits. We will be back next week.